what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video I've got a good one for you. Because in today's video, we are looking at the Sunto Race S. Basically, the S is for the smaller version of the Sunto Race. And I am wearing the Race S right here, and it measures 45mm across compared to the Race, which is slightly bigger at 49mm. So if this is the size of watch you like, watch on. Right guys, full disclosure, Sunto was good enough to send me this Race S for the purpose of review. However, they haven't told me what to say. They don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. With that said, you're going to be able to pick up your own Sunto Race S for just $349 for the stainless steel edition. Now, I've actually been testing the titanium edition, and if you want the titanium edition, that will cost you $469. Also, Sunto was good enough to send me the Courtney Dauwalter edition, and with the Courtney edition, you get this sweet rubber band that actually glows in the dark, and when it glows in the dark, you can see the word believe across the band. And the believe is actually written in Courtney's handwriting. And that believe is just a reminder for when you are deep in the pain cave, in the middle of a really long run, to just believe in your training, believe in yourself. So not a reason to actually buy the watch, but a nice Easter egg nonetheless. Now, you can only buy the Courtney Dauwalter edition in the titanium version, but you could just buy the Courtney strap and then add it on to the $349 stainless steel watch. Okay, so right off the bat, I think the Sunto Race S offers an amazing value for money. It gives us athletes a lot of what we're looking for at a very competitive price point. And when I say competitive price point, I am talking about the stainless steel edition, because $349 is a really good price. Now, something you should know right off the bat is that Sunto is using Gorilla Glass for the lens, so not sapphire. But I do want to remind you that the Sunto Race is only $349. Again, it's a solid price. And it's the same Gorilla Glass lens in the titanium edition. Now look, I'm probably just like you. Of course, I want sapphire, but that's only because I've been conditioned to believe it's the very best. I have had a lot of watches with Gorilla Glass, and I haven't scratched them. So I think it's going to be resilient enough for most of what you're going to be putting the watch through. The Sunto Race S does have a 1.32-inch touchscreen high-definition AMOLED display. It has a resolution of 466 by 466, so the AMOLED display on the Race S is super crisp. And because it has the same resolution as the larger Race, you're actually getting a higher pixel density with the Race S, which means the screen is going to be even brighter and crisper than its big brother. Now, the Race S does feature 32GB of internal storage. Now, this internal storage isn't for like loading MP3s onto the watch. You can't do that, but that's okay because who uses MP3s anymore? No, that 32GB of storage is just for maps. And Sunto offers free offline maps for the entire world. But look, the best thing is that you don't have to load the entire world of maps onto your watch. You get to go onto the app, you get to choose the regions that you want to put onto the watch, and then you download those specific regions only. Now, of course, the Sunto Race S with those maps does offer course navigation, and it's going to show you a real-time breadcrumb map, as well as offering turn-by-turn navigations for the route that you're following in the watch. Now, there are not street names on the maps, so you're not going to be able to like zoom in and just see what road you're on, but you will be able to zoom in and see that you're on a road, zoom out, and kind of find your way out if that's the way you wanted to navigate. It's pretty handy to have, and again, they're offline maps, so it doesn't have to be connected to your phone in order to look at the maps on the watch. Now, the Sunto Race S does feature a 3-button design. We have a top button, a bottom button, and the middle button is also a digital crown, so you can either rotate mechanically, or it is a touchscreen. You can just scroll through the menus with your finger. And this brings me to a point that I have been very impressed with. The touchscreen is extremely responsive, and the UI is very intuitive. Of course, the Sunto Race S, it's a premium sports watch at a good price, so it's going to give you all the sports watch stuff aside from like activities. Like, it's going to track your steps, it's going to track your heart rate, it's going to give you your calories burned. If you want it to, it'll let you know that it's time to stand up if the watch thinks you've been sitting for too long. But it also has those high-end training metrics that we really look for, even if we don't use them all the time. So it is going to track your VO2 max, it's going to have lactate threshold detection, it's going to give you stress and recovery status, it's going to track your HRV, it's going to let you know your daily resources, which is like how much energy you have left, almost like Garmin's body battery, but we'll get more into that in just a second. Of course, you can create workouts within the Sunto app and load them to your watch, and that's very easy. And you can sync it with a boatload of Sunto's partners. Now, for me, the only thing that I'm syncing my Sunto account with is Strava, and that is so when I'm done with a workout, my workout uploads directly to Strava. It's seamless. But also, my routes that I have created in Strava can now be sent to the watch, and I can follow them and all the information that they give me. And once those courses are loaded into your watch and you've started it, the watch is going to guide you through that course using using on-screen navigation, and it's going to let you know about all the hills. Now, the hills are especially important because the Race S also features Sunto Plus Climb. And basically, when you activate the Sunto Plus Climb, it's going to automatically detect the hills that you're climbing and create individual laps of them. Oh, and just so you know, the watch detects a climb after you've climbed for 10 meters. And when you have the Sunto Plus Climb turned on, it's going to give you the gradient, it's going to give you your normalized graded pace, so the pace that you would be running if you were running on flat land. Probably seen that as gap on Strava. It's going to give you your total elevation gain and your vertical speed. This is extremely handy, especially if you're doing hill repeats. But it's also handy because when you're actually following a course that you loaded onto the watch, it's going to tell you how much of your climb you have left. Now, there are a boatload of widgets that you can have included on the Race S, and you can go ahead and configure which ones you want on the watch, probably like which information you're most interested in, but I tend to have a lot. Now, if you swipe up from the screen, you're going to access those widgets, and you can see I can either scroll through them using the digital crown, or I can just use my finger and scroll on the screen. This would be a good time to notice just how responsive the screen is. You can see it just moving very easily with my finger. You can also see that I just have a lot of widgets on here. I want all the information that is available to me. Right now my battery's at 78%, and we're going to talk more about battery life in just a second. We can see this week I've logged 8 hours of training, blood oxygen level, resources. For some reason I just love to know what time the sun is setting and what time it's going to be rising. Now, of course, if you want to open up any of these widgets, all you do is tap on it and it opens up and gives you that information. You can then either swipe to the right to go back or hit the lower button. That also brings you back a screen. Weather, steps, altitude, and sleep. There's a few more. So your widgets just give you a quick glance into information that you may want to see when you're out on the road. I don't mean out on the road, like maybe after the run. And you're just kind of pouring through your watch, looking for that information. But if you want to dig a little deeper, then you go to the Sunto app. And if I put that app on your screen right now, you're going to see just a lot of information. And look, I gotta be honest, this is my first Sunto watch. So when I first opened up the app, I thought it was a little busy. Like the icons are quite small, but honestly, now that I've gotten used to it, I just love how much information I've got all in one place. So right now you can see that on the top of the screen, my training has been productive. That's always a good thing to see. So let me get out of that screen for just a second, and we're going to see these numbers right from the main screen. So the CTL is your chronic training load, and basically that describes your long-term training. And it's going to show a trend line of where your training is going over the long term. So if I open that up again, you can see the CTL at 140 is that black line, and luckily for me, it's trending upwards. Now the ATL at 158 right now for me is your acute training load, and that's an indication of your short-term training. And we can see by this graph that apparently my short-term training has been pretty high, at least higher than my chronic training. So historically, I've been doing more training recently than I have over the long term. And then finally, we have form, or TSB. TSB stands for training stress balance. And basically that compares your chronic training load with your acute training load. So because my acute training load has been higher than my chronic training load, I do have a negative number. Okay, let's head over to my activities. Basically, this is all the activities that you've logged. So if I scroll down, you're going to see all my recent activities that I've logged using the watch. Let's just go back. Oh, let's look at resources. Now, if I open up the resources, now I'm at 21%, which is moderate, at least moderate according to the app. I feel better than 21%. But the reason that it's 21% right now is because this morning I did a very hard tempo run. Yesterday I ran some hills, and then the day before that I did an interval run. So I've been stacking some tough training. But basically, the more you work out, the less resources you have to draw on. So that number goes down. After a big rest, like sleeping through the night, your resources go up. This tracks that over time. Now I want you to notice that my 8-day average of resources upon waking up is 71%. I think that's pretty good. At least this week, that's pretty good. Now, if you were tapering and you weren't working out as much as normal, I think you'd probably want to see that number a little higher. But for me, in the thick of training, that's not too bad. Next up, we've got sleep, but we're going to dig into sleep in just a second. And if I scroll to the left, we've got the heart rate graph, your steps, your HRV, and your calories burnt, all tracked over time. But right now, let me just open up the HRV because it's showing me at 32, which it's saying is a little high. Now, the watch learns what's normal for you, and then it can give you notifications of when it's high or when it's low, so you know to either pull back on the training or to let you know if it's time to really hit it hard. Oh, let's talk about battery life. That's a big deal with a sports watch. Now, the battery life on the Race S, it's definitely not the best, but it is far from the worst. So Sunto claims that in smartwatch mode, the Race S will last you up to 9 days. When it's just in standby mode, it'll last up to 13 days, so that's really just not using it. If you didn't use it, it'll last a full 13 days. But look, I promise you, these numbers mean nothing to you because you are not just going to not use your watch, and also you're not going to get the Race S because you want a smartwatch. You're getting it for the performance attributes. So let's talk about training. And by training, I mean tracking your activities using GPS. Now, there's a couple of settings that kind of balance the most accuracy with the most battery life. So we've got performance mode. And in performance mode, where we're using all systems and dual band GPS recording, you're going to get up to 30 hours of full-on the best tracking accuracy on this watch. Now, the next step down is endurance mode. Basically, that's exactly the same, but you're only using single band GPS. All right, so the accuracy is potentially going to be a little lower. And I say potentially because a lot of the times dual band GPS is overkill. Where I live, it's definitely overkill. Where dual band GPS really comes in and benefits you is if you're like running through a gorge or if there's high buildings all around you. That's when that dual band really helps to triangulate your positioning, increase accuracy. But when you're using endurance mode, so it's still sampling every second, but it's only using that single band GPS, you'll get up to 40 hours of battery life. And then we're going to drop down to tour mode, and this is the longest battery life that you can get. And in tour mode, it only samples the satellites every 2 minutes, but it's going to last you 120 hours. So if you were going on some epic adventure where you're just traveling, kind of in a straightish line, like not making any quick turns, that's actually going to work really well. And you can be out there for 120 hours. Of course, it does have a barometric altimeter. It's going to let you know your altitude acclimation based on your blood oxygen level. Okay, I think that has pretty much covered everything that goes into the watch and the use case scenario and what you're actually going to be using it for, but some of you are probably interested in how it compares to other watches. So that's what we're going to get into right now. And first of all, I want to talk about sleep tracking or sleep comparison. Now, I have worn the Sunto Race S every day and night for the last 6 weeks that I've had the watch. And don't worry, I am not going to bore you by showing you 6 weeks of sleep data. I'm just going to pick a couple of days. So on this day, you can see that the Sunto Race S recorded me sleeping 9 hours and 17 minutes. The Apple Watch Ultra also measured 9 hours and 17 minutes. The Garmin 965 measured 9 hours and 11 minutes. The Ultrahuman Ring Air measured 9 hours and 10 minutes. And the Chorus Apex 2 Pro measured 9 hours and 3 minutes. And yes, if you're wondering, I was sleeping these nights with 4 watches and a smart ring. Next up, the Sunto Race S measured 8 hours and 28 minutes. The Apple Watch Ultra measured 8 hours and 33 minutes. The Garmin 965, 8:30. Ultrahuman Ring Air, 8:35. And the Chorus Apex 2 Pro, 8:24. And finally, Sunto, 8:16. Apple Watch, 8:12. Garmin, 7:51. Ultrahuman, 8:20. And Chorus, 8:04. So I guess my point by showing you all this data is that they're all like in the ballpark. I certainly wouldn't bet anything on the accuracy of any of these watches. I think when we're actually looking at sleep, we just want to know our trends. Like we kind of want to know when we're falling asleep and waking up, but they are all going to differ very slightly. And I'm actually pretty impressed that all of these devices are tracking so similar. Next up is GPS accuracy. And I do have to say that the Sunto Race S performs outstandingly, at least when we're comparing it to some other top-end competitors. I have been very impressed with the GPS accuracy. So let's just run through a couple comparables. In this run, the Sunto Race S measured 14.03 miles, the Garmin 965 measured 14.01 miles, Chorus measured 14.06 miles, and the Apple Watch Ultra measured 13.98 miles. On this run, Sunto recorded 10.05 miles, Garmin recorded 10.01 miles, Chorus recorded 10.05 miles, and the Apple Watch Ultra measured 9.99 miles. And finally, this final run, Sunto measured 8.05 miles, Garmin measured 8.01 miles, Chorus measured 8.02 miles, and Apple Watch Ultra measured 7.93 miles. So you can see the trends. I've been comparing the Sunto Race S with a top-end Garmin watch and a top-end Chorus watch, and they are very, very close. They are so close that when you overlay the tracks on the map, like you're not seeing any difference. The GPS accuracy is spot on. But now let's talk about heart rate accuracy, because Sunto has actually improved the heart rate monitor on the Race S even over the larger Race. They've included more lights, more sensors, the stuff that makes it more accurate. So was it more accurate? I don't know, because this is the first Sunto watch that I've used. But for me, the accuracy left a little bit to be desired. So look at this run. Do you see some problems on the screen? Because I do. Look, I'm not a scientist. I can't interpret this data any way other than what I see on the screen. And basically, the green is the Sunto Race S. And we can see here, it looks like it was fairly good through the first part of the run, the first couple miles. Then I don't know what happens, but it just goes haywire. Well, I do know what happens. It's probably picking up my cadence, but it doesn't consistently pick up my cadence. It drops back down, it comes along, then we're down to about normal, then it goes haywire again for a couple miles. Looks like we get back to normal with a couple more jumps later on. Now we can see this other watch in the pink right up here where my mouse is going back and forth here. that's actually the Apple Watch Ultra, and that looks like that went out of control then as well. But the two down here, these are the Garmin 965 and the Chorus Apex 2 Pro, and you can see that they remain consistent throughout. But it's not all bad. So on this run right here, where you can see I kind of warmed up in the beginning, then there was a gradual build of heart rate. So this is obviously a tempo run, and I gradually build as the run goes along, and then I drop down for the cool down right here. Funnily enough, you can see that the Apple Watch also was a bit out of control in this area of the graph right here, but everything else, the Sunto Race S, the Garmin 965 and the Chorus Apex 2 Pro are all right in line, like close enough to not even question them. And on this one, this is another one where the watch just seemed to work. We can see that the Garmin, the Chorus and the Sunto watch are all following along fairly well, and then for some reason the Apple Watch Ultra just decided to not work. Okay, the next example shows the sporadic nature of the Sunto Race S as far as heart rate goes. You can see for the most part, at least right here, it's all very similar, but we've got this area right here at the beginning of the run where the Race S just jumped up in my heart rate, and then of course we've got these obvious, very obvious peaks here and here. Like, not ideal. And it's really not ideal because it throws off all the other training data. So if I am basing a race performance or fatigue level or recovery off of my runs, I need my runs to record my heart rate right, because this run where I had these peaks right here and at the beginning, this is skewing my data, and it's going to tell me that I am more fatigued than I really am, especially after a very consistent easy run. And finally, I do just want to show you a hill workout, and this was me going back and forth over a bridge, and you can see where the hills were obviously if we look at both the Chorus and the Garmin, but the Sunto just had no idea what my heart rate was. You can see it is just consistently higher than the other two watches. Now, one thing it did get right was when I came to a stop right here, you can see they both dropped down to like a resting heart rate level, and then as soon as I started running again for a couple more repeats, the Sunto just jumped right up and was much higher than the other two watches. Again, it recorded the stop quite well, but then through the roof. So this has been my experience with the heart rate on the Sunto Race S. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time, it doesn't work for the entire run. Now, I did speak to some running buddies about this, and the general consensus was that if you want to track your heart rate and you want to base your training off of your heart rate, you probably need to be using an external heart rate monitor. So my advice is, if you are going to get the Race S, and I still stand by that it being an incredible value for all the features that you're getting baked into the watch for just $349. But if you want to base your training off of heart rate, an external heart rate monitor is still required. So take that for what it's worth. Now, I actually don't mind wearing an external heart rate monitor. I just wear a very unobtrusive optical heart rate sensor on my forearm, and it delivers my heart rate to the watch perfectly. But if you are not running, if you're not really concerned with your heart rate, you just want something to record your activities, remember, the GPS is just world class in the Race S. So now I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever run in a Sunto watch? Are you thinking of picking up the Race S? And while you're down there in the comments, if you already have a GPS training watch, let me know which one you use. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been my review of the Sunto Race S. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.